with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
Good morning. This is DFH Radio Sports Daily. I'm Paul Savage. Top Captain joining us here in just a second. And welcome to the broadcast today. We're going to have a lot of fun. There's a lot going on today. Basketball, and of course a little bit of NFL talk. But for the most part, it's going to be a basketball day, and it's going to be so much fun. Wichita State once again playing Birmingham. University of Alabama at Birmingham in the conference quarterfinals of the AAC tournament. We've got Big 12 action. We got all kinds of things going on. And joining us also on this show today is my good buddy, Tommy Castor. Tommy, how the heck are you?
Hey, good morning, Paul. Thanks for taking that initial introduction. Really appreciate that. But hey, big game yesterday for the Shockers,
doesn't
right?
Look like I have Tommy quite yet.
Nope. We good? Are we on? I think we're live. I think we're good. I think we're solid. We're really excited to be here today on this Friday edition of Sports Daily. Appreciate you, Paul, for kicking off the show here. Yeah, to your point, Shockers yesterday. I mean, just incredible. That game against Memphis, I'll tell you what, the fact that they were able to kind of, again, like we talked about yesterday on the show, take the gut punches, roll with those punches, and continue to win games in this tournament, to move forward. UAB, you got them today, this afternoon. And I think the words you used yesterday, Paul, house money, I think we both talked about that a little bit in regards to the Shockers, just because of what they've been able to accomplish. Now you've got a situation where you win today against UAB, a team that you beat a couple of weeks ago on the road. You beat them again. Then you play in the semifinals tomorrow. You could potentially find yourself battling for an American Conference Tournament championship. And that's not something that we thought would happen. We didn't think we would be here, talking about this on this show today, but here we are.
And I'm going to make it to our listeners as well. I didn't know who we were going to play in the next round. Do you know why?
Why is that?
I didn't think I needed to check that far. I mean, I'm serious. And after that game, I thought to myself, I've got to figure out who we're playing. And I know they made a couple of references in the broadcast, but you know something? I had to think about it, because it was almost like, are you sure this is even, am I on the right page? Am I listening and watching the right thing? Because this was such an outstanding win. And of course, this is the key win. This is the signature win of the Paul Mills era. I'll tell you what, it's going to go numerous years before we talk about another win as important to Paul Mills as this win was to Wichita State and his coaching staff. Man, it was something else. I mean, I don't know where it came from, and I don't know where it was. There's the old saying, Tommy, shooters shoot, let them shoot, right? That's what they do. And even when they're not playing well, even when shooters aren't shooting well, how you fix the problem? You let them shoot. And so maybe that's what this situation was. Did it take until the AAC tournament for this team to step up and figure out, something, here's what we're doing, here's what we got to do? Or did they finally just buy into what Paul Mills is selling? Because sometimes it can be just about as simple as that. It can be just that simple.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, a buy-in, something? Maybe they know what they're doing. Let's give it. I don't know. But anyway.
Well, look, I mean,
fun.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, Paul, they're only a couple of wins away from playing for an American Tournament championship. We're going to talk a lot more Shockers as the show goes on, because they're the only local team that continues to play in their conference tournament. We've got more on them as the show goes on. We're going to be joined by Wyatt Thompson in the next segment to talk Kansas State Wildcats. And before we take a break, I do want to briefly, Paul, just, talk briefly about Kansas State before we get into our interview with Wyatt Thompson. Basically, it was a situation for Kansas State. We talked about it yesterday. They had to win. They had to win that game against Iowa State. Basically, I think to get any kind of consideration from the committee, because at this point they've got no other games to play until Selection Sunday. And Joe Lunardi, and we've referenced him a few different times this week, Joe Lunardi, ESPN bracketologist, now has Kansas State in the next 4 out. They're the first team in his next 4 out. The issue with that is that, it's going to take some movement from the teams in front of them to fall off for Kansas State, to be able to at least have some consideration. They're 19-14. They definitely needed, I think, that win yesterday for them to get their name called on Sunday. I think they're going to come up just short.
Well, and there's still a few of the conference tournament finals to be played with some of the I shouldn't say lesser, but some of the smaller conferences. And of course, those got to fall in line. I mean, you can't, it would be best on anybody that may get a second bid to win outright their conference title. We'll see how that goes. Probably that's not as big a factor, but we got a lot cooking. It seems like a lot cooking. There's a lot of hopes, hanging. I'm not so convinced that K-State's in at this point.
I don't think they are.
I think they needed this one win. They needed to get by Iowa State a second time. And something, when Iowa State pops up, and I'm thinking to myself, something, it is dang hard to beat a team twice in a season. And I've had to go through that numerous times, and it is extremely, extremely difficult.
And Paul, we're not talking about just beating a team twice in a season. We're talking about beating a top 10 team nationally twice in 1 week.
Twice in 1 week.
They did it on Saturday. They got to play him again last night. That's a tall task.
It is
for the Wildcats, and they did it at home last weekend. But now you got to do it on a neutral floor. And I want to get Wyatt's take on this after the break, because we know typically and historically how well Iowa State fans travel in the Big 12 tournament. They usually bring a lot of red and yellow down from Ames, Iowa to Kansas City, that short drive. And I'm imagining, it sounded fairly loud in favor of the Cyclones last night. I want to get his take. He was in the building last night and what that sounded like to him. But that's a tall task. Iowa State is, at this point, I think probably a 2 seed. I'm not sure they can jump all the way up to a 1 necessarily, but they're going to be a really difficult out in the NCAA tournament. And, the Wildcats, it was one of those, I think we talked about, okay, their backs are up against a wall. This is kind of where the Wildcats are able to thrive. Unfortunately, they were down by 7 at halftime, really couldn't get it going in the second half. And it was a fairly easy or comfortable victory for Iowa State last night by 19.
Well, and it was it's hard to watch because, I had dreams, but, reality is that Iowa State's dang good. I mean, they are really, really good. And they defended last night very, very well, as you can tell, keeping the Cats into the 50s. They defended extremely well. And you and I both knew going into this game, and I don't know that we were saying it out loud, at least on the air. I don't think I was making any. I was drinking I don't want to say Kool-Aid because I'm not going that far, but I had hopes. I thought to myself, well, you did it once, you did it twice, but I'd forgotten. I just had put it in the back of my mind just how good Iowa State is. Ladies and gentlemen, Iowa State will compete for a national championship. They are one of those 5 or 6 teams that might win it all. Would you agree with that, Mr. Castor?
Yeah, they're a hard-nosed team.
They're hard-nosed.
To your point. And it's something that TJ Otzelberger has done a phenomenal job at up in Ames. And, again, we'll talk to Wyatt Thompson after the break about his take on that game and where he thinks Iowa State will land in the NCAA tournament and how far they will go. I mentioned we're going to talk more shockers as the show goes on. Before we take our break and get to Wyatt Thompson very quickly, let's go to the KFH hotline, 869-1240. Our buddy Anthony is on the line, has a Wichita State thought to bring into the show. Anthony, good morning. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing just fine. And, when you think about, all these conference tournaments going on and who's in and who's out, and Paul said it, he didn't want to call the conference lesser conference, so I'll say the our conferences. Can you imagine what happens if Wichita State wins the AAC? That's probably going to knock somebody out of a spot, even in their own conference. And then you have
Without
to
a
talk
doubt.
about where the chips fall in other conferences as
Yeah.
well, too.
Well,
You're talking, Anthony, you're talking about a team, in Wichita State that if they win the next 3 games, at that point, they're exactly a 500 team. They weren't going to get an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament, obviously.
They wouldn't even get an NIT bid.
Right. So then you end up taking an auto bid. I don't know, who would it probably be in the American? Probably either Florida Atlantic or South Florida, to get that auto bid. And so then you've got to give potentially an at-large bid to one of those teams. That could knock one of the bubble teams off the bubble. Are we talking Indiana State? We talking Kansas State? I think that your point is really valid there.
Right, because I was checking out some of the A10 conference games yesterday, and you almost feel for Loyola because you wonder where will they fall at now because they lost their game yesterday. So it's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of pieces to put in the puzzle, and that's why you guys do talk shows, and I call in. We let those guys behind those desks figure that out because that's like a trigonometry class.
Yeah.
On that note,
it's tough.
You guys go to break, pay some bills. I'm gonna listen to Wyatt Thompson's comments. Have a fantastic Friday.
Thanks, Anthony. By the way, Tommy,
it,
before we go to break,
yeah.
One of those conferences that we're talking about where they don't want to see these kind of things happen, I think might be the Big East because you've got St. John's on the bubble. You've had several other teams on the bubble, off and on bubbles, but St. John's, I believe right now, they're in the first 4 out. I think. I'm not sure. I've checked recently, but it is going to affect the Big East in particular if something like the Shockers win it. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, do we? I don't think we want to because
no, we don't. And like I said, we'll talk more Shockers as the show goes on, but I do think today, considering they beat UAB on the road, they could absolutely do it again. Then at that point, things get pretty interesting in the conference. Let's break it all down as the show goes on today. But after our first break, Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Kansas State Wildcats, will join us. We're just getting started on a Friday. Tommy Castor, Paul Savage, Chad Chambers, coming right back on Sports Daily.
Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on Kansas State. Let's go now to the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily on KFH. I'm Tommy Castor, along with Paul Savage, and for Jacob Albracht this week. Jad Chambers producing the program on the KFH hotline at 869-1240. Our buddy Wyatt Thompson, the voice of the Kansas State Wildcats. Wyatt, welcome in. Thanks for being on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure. Good to be on with you guys. Hope you're doing well.
Doing well. I know that last night was, definitely interesting for the Wildcats. The second time in less than a week that they play Iowa State, this time in the Big 12 tournament. The Wildcats, Wyatt, fell down by 7 at halftime. They made a brief run early in the second half, but then Iowa State pulled away. Your big takeaway from last night, was this a Wildcat team that, just was tired and worn out? Or do you think Iowa State kind of asserted themselves as one of the best teams in the country?
Well, let me answer it this way. I think you'll probably appreciate this to a degree. I think the 2 nights that K-State played in Kansas City is pretty much a microcosm of their season. You look at what they did in the second half a couple of nights ago against Texas, and they played maybe their best half of basketball. Last night in the second half against Iowa State, you could argue that it was one of their worst, if not their worst, 20 minutes of basketball in the second half. I don't know if you believe that or not, but that game is 40-39. You're right there, even though you're not necessarily playing your best basketball. And I want to not take anything away from Iowa State. They were clearly the better team last night. Coach Perry told us on and off the air, they were the tougher team. They were just a better team in so many areas last night. But K-State went through a stretch there from right after it was 40-39 where they've had trouble all year with turnovers, but wow, was that stretch of about 10 or 12 minutes not good in any way. It just seemed like they were turning the ball over almost every other possession, and it ended up in runouts at the other end. It was not good, not good.
Wyatt, we had been talking about the chances of Kansas State getting to the tournament, how far they had to go, how deep they had to go. Tommy and I had diversed in where we thought. I said they had to get to the finals. Tommy said the semifinals. But I'll tell you what, this is a team that showed a lot of resilience in the last few days, beating a Texas, beating an Iowa State in Manhattan. Gosh, how much do they have to do? And what has to happen? And I guess the bigger question is, in your opinion, what's that one thing that needs to happen to get this team into the tournament? Because right now, unless something happens that I don't know what it is, unless something happens, I'm not sure they're going to make the tournament.
Well, I think, I'm not sure, Paul, if you heard Coach Tang last night in his post-game press conference, but the first 3 to 3.5 minutes of that was basically his opinion of what K-State's resume is. And if you are a K-State fan and you listen to that, you're thinking, we're in. I don't know that anybody else necessarily sees it the same way. I stayed last night. I stayed last night in Kansas City, and I got up about 5 o'clock, and I headed back this morning, and I'm listening to Big 12 radio and Sirius XM, and I heard Tim Welsh, who I greatly respect as a man and as a former coach and as an analyst that does a lot of Big 12 games, and what he said is he got the argument. He felt like Tang made a lot of really, really good points, whether it was quad 1 wins, whether it was, not losses in the quad 2, quad 3, quad 4, all of those things were right. The only thing he really said that I disagreed with is he said that, Tang talked about the Miami game, and at the time K-State played them, they were ranked 15th in the country. And what he said was that didn't matter because they, at one point, had lost 10 in a row. Well, it matters if they were -4 their players. I guess I'm defending the coach a little bit here, but I think all of the things that he said were factual. Now, is it enough to get them in? There's the real story, right? Wouldn't you think that's accurate? And I don't know whether they will or whether they won't. I am probably leaning towards they're still on the outside looking in. I really do believe that had they won last night, then you could really make an argument, really. But I'm not sure today, and I guess we're just going to have to, like everybody else, wait and see. But the frustrating, tantalizing, whatever you want to say, part is like I mentioned before, with the way they played in those two games in stretches was really what their season was. They had almost 500 turnovers and won 19 games.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
That is.
I mean,
dead last in the Power 6 in turnovers. Dead last.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a team that I think, regardless if they make the tournament or not, you can look back on this season as, overcoming and compensating for major issues, those injuries. Quez Glover's one of them. And then obviously the Naquan Tomlin situation. You mentioned the turnovers, all these other, things where they've really overcome that adversity. And it wasn't always easy, obviously. They lost 14 games. It wasn't always easy, but I do admire the resolve and the resiliency of this program, because they very easily could have folded up midway through the season and just said, look, like, things are not going our way. It's not going to work for us. And really, they didn't do that. They were able to at least play their way back onto the bubble and in consideration for an NCAA tournament bid. Whether or not they get it on Sunday, I think, is irrelevant.
Yeah, I think you said a lot there, Tommy, honestly. And I think what I would add to that is I thought Rodney Perry with Stan and I last night in postgame radio made a really good point. Coach Tang last year did an amazing job, had a really good team, lost in the regional final for a chance to go to the Final Four, was Naismith National Coach of the Year. And he made the argument that he did a better job coaching this year than last because of the adversity they faced and the issues that they had. We said all along that this was a team that, because of the scenario with Naquan Tomlin and because of the situation with the injury to Quez Glover, and remember, if you remember back, Quez was within a day of being ready to come back, and on that day re-injured the knee again. So it's just been one of those years where he has, and when I say he, I don't mean just Tang. I mean the entire staff, but I'm pretty close to this, and I would tell you I admired the way that those guys worked. I think they got to the point even where the littlest minute details they were trying to make better. I think they got to the point too where they were what they were in terms of the turnovers and started to live with that to a degree. And okay, this is what we are, but maybe we can be better in this area, in this area, in this area. And I think for a while they did that. They just continued to grind and work, far from perfect, certainly, but I admire their work ethic and just their will to try to get those guys into the tournament, because if you know Jerome Tang and you know his passion for the game and life and all of those kind of things. He desperately wants to get there, and we'll see if he does or doesn't. But I don't think it's for lack of trying.
Well, we're sitting with the final four. We have the top 4 seeds into the final 4 spots in the tournament into the semifinals. So I guess the question is right now, there was speculation a month ago that the Big 12 would get 10 teams into the big dance. Is it going to be 9? Is it going to be 9 or is it going to be 10? What do you think?
Well, I think there are some that would argue that it could be 10, and then I think most believe. I think if you're talking just majority, you'd probably say 9. I know there is
all right.
Some speculation on TCU. There's even more speculation on Oklahoma.
Yes, there is.
But in visiting with some of the people in the conference and with some of those teams in Kansas City, I think they feel like they're in. TCU lost 4 in a row going into the tournament and then won a game. Oklahoma lost, and just to be clear, okay. They played the game they lost in the tournament. They played without 3 guys, and they're significant players. So they will be ready for tournament play. So I'm thinking that 9 is the right number, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah, it's going to be real. It's going to be, Tommy, if you just give me a second, Jim, it's going to be very, very interesting with regards to who gets in. Now, with regards, one more real quick question with regards to the Big 12 tournament. I think, I think we all figure that Houston's going to beat Texas Tech, and I believe Iowa State's going to beat Baylor. And so that's going to give you a matchup of what I think, Wyatt, are the 2 best defensive teams in America. I know there's debate about that, but man, I've watched Iowa State enough and Houston enough, and whenever Houston's on, I watch it because it's just a thing of beauty. The way they defend, man, it is something else. It's on a different level. And I just wanted to ask you, let's say we get those 2 teams into the finals. I got a question for you, an over-under question. Over-under 105 points between Iowa State and Houston. You take the over or do you take the under? 105 points.
It'd be hard for me to take the over if I'm being 100% honest.
I know.
I sat there and watched Houston for a second time live this year. We played down at their place, and they just manhandled and just out physically toughed K-State. And they did the same thing yesterday to a pretty, I think you guys would agree with this, a pretty good shooting TCU team.
Yes.
Try these stats on for size. You ready for this, buddy?
Yeah, lay it on me.
TCU started the game 0 for 14 from the floor, started the second half 0 for 8.
Wow.
0 for 14 and 0 for 8.
Oh,
yikes.
And there was nothing easy. I've watched Emmanuel Miller play in this league for a while now. I've never seen him more frustrated than he was in that game yesterday afternoon. He had 26 the day before, and yesterday started 0 for 6, probably missed at least 2 of those were layups. I was sitting there right by my friend Brian Estridge, who's my counterpart at TCU, and there was a point where he said that by his estimation, TCU missed 22 shots within about 5 feet of the rim. Now, you can say, well, they just made bad shots, but my point is they're good enough defensively that they contest everything. Everything. And I don't think Iowa State is too far away. Let me give you an example of that. And I know you're comparing apples to oranges here. I get it. But I'm sitting here this morning and I'm looking at this. K-State shot 55% in the second half against Texas. Okay? In the second half against Iowa State, they shot 44%. But in the first half, 7 of 22. I think Iowa State is a click or 2 behind Houston defensively, but I think where they catch up a little bit is their ability with more guys to be able to score. I like Houston a lot, and maybe they will get beat earlier than we all think, but I don't think it will be because of their defense. Their defense and their rebounding, and I can't stress this enough, their toughness is off the charts. Off the charts.
Yep. Talking to Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Kansas State Wildcats here on Sports Daily. And to your point, Wyatt, Iowa State last night, 4 starters in double figures. They were really able to find multiple different players to be effective offensively for the Cyclones. I know one of the major storylines over the last several weeks, as Kansas State has been trying to make this run to an NCAA tournament berth, is getting Tyler Perry to be able to play in an NCAA tournament. And last night, I mean, he had one of his better shooting nights, 18 points for him, 4 of 7 from the field, 3 of 6 from long distance. I think that, that's something that I would love to get your take on, is watching this guy play throughout the season, knowing he's never played in an NCAA tournament, and just the effort that not only he, but the rest of his team, they've tried to put together to get him to that NCAA tournament.
It's a very interesting subject for me because in the short period of time that I've known Tyler, I would be honest and tell you there have been few guys in my time at K-State that I feel that have any more quality work ethic and willpower than him. He's not exactly a big guy. He's not exactly a great athlete, but he literally, and I mean this sincerely, loves the game, loves to compete. It seems to me the tougher the game, the better he is more times than not. Not always, but more times than not. I just think his care factor is really, really good. Coach Tang and the staff love the guy. And I think everybody on that team, all the way down to Tamon Lipsey, the walk-on, who's now a scholarship kid for this this semester, we're busting their hump to try to help him get there because of all that he's put into this. He's really a unique young man for me. And I've enjoyed being around him. I really am hoping that they do make it. And again, who knows whether they will or they won't. Most would say no. And I'm saddened by that just for him and this group, but especially him because of what he's put into it. I know how hard he works. He's something special.
Well, I've got another question for you here in a second, but before I give it to you, I want to just point out one thing to you, White, because, with my schedule here at this radio station, I'm on and off. You never know when you're going to catch me, do you, White? But anyway, I wanted to bring out one particular thing about Houston before we get off the Houston topic, and that is, and it's just from friend to friend. I've known you for a long time, all the way from my other days at the other stations and all the other things. I want to give you something to look out for, okay? You know how Houston's kind of dominated basketball in the Big 12 so far this year, and we're all talking about how good. Something, be ready, Wyatt, because the same thing's going to happen in football. Not next year, not the year after, but within the next 5 years, you're going to see Houston step up and become the same thing. You know how I know that? As a fan of the old Southwest Conference, and I know you were just a mere baby at the time when the Southwest Conference was in existence. Oh, that was uncalled for, but you get the point. But do you remember that when the Southwest Conference brought Houston into the Southwest Conference, what happened? They kind of won several championships in a row, didn't they? Southwest.
They did.
I'm just telling you that the Big 12 was indeed fortunate to get the University of Houston into the Big 12, because that is a place where you can go to win national championships. And be ready. Be ready. Just remember, you heard it from me first, okay?
Okay. Well, right. I'll take that under consideration. And let me just add to this. I've been familiar with Kelvin Sampson for a long time, even back to his days in the league with Oklahoma.
Sure.
And when I talked about their toughness, believe me when I tell you, it all starts with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, they were crushing TCU. And there was a point where he got mad at one of his players, and you could hear him over the however many thousand people were in that facility. And I mean, I'm not sure what his blood pressure would have been at that point, but I'd hate to, and maybe I wouldn't want to know.
Yeah.
His point is in a 25-point game, he didn't care about the score. He cared about giving me effort and doing it my way and the right way.
That's a beautiful thing.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. Wow. That's how he coaches. And I will say this about their football. I think they are going to get better and better. I think Willie Fritz. They hired a really good football coach there, and they will get better. There is no doubt about that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to be good. There's no question in my mind. Now, my other question is, with regards to Kansas State, is you're around this team. You've been with their coaching staff. You know the mindset of this team. What is the mindset of this team going into a different tournament other than the NCAA tournament? Is this a team that, if put into a tournament, they have the mindset, well, we're here, let's just go ahead and win it? Or is it one, let's just, let's get through this dumb thing and get to the spring semester?
Well, I've done these kind of interviews for 40 plus years, and I try really hard to be honest, be straightforward, give you the perception that I know everything that I'm talking about. Right. That's kind of how this works.
That's correct.
But I don't know if I can answer that one because I don't know that we know until we get in there what the mindset will be. I would like to think, based on what we talked about with Tyler and the leadership at the top of this program, if they are an NIT team, that once they're in and they get past the disappointment of not making their ultimate goal, which was the NCAA tournament, that they'll say, okay, well, let's just go show everybody they were wrong. Do you buy that? Is that good? But I think that's the unknown.
Yeah.
And I don't deal with, well, I shouldn't say it that way. That's probably not fair. There are a lot of unknowns in sports, and I don't know that, but I would like to think that, once they get past the hurt, then they turn it up enough and go see what they can do. But I mean, I've seen many teams over the years, and even been a part of a few that they showed up in that tournament and really didn't play very well. That's reality.
Yeah. One more for you, Wyatt, before we let you go here today. Okay, so let's look ahead past any kind of postseason tournament, whether that's they find their way into the NCAA or the NIT or anything like that. Let's look to the offseason. In your mind, what are some areas that you think Coach Tang needs to address, some areas on this team that they need to, basically work on and build for a more successful 2025?
It's a fantastic question, I think. And you know what? There are probably several answers to this. Cut me off if we're running over time here. But I think first and foremost, with the way the transfer portal is now and all of the things that make college basketball what it is you have to answer the obvious question first. How many of your current guys will be back? Okay. So we know Will McNair will not be back. We know Tyler Perry will not be back. We know that Taymont Lindsay will not be back. We know those are facts. What about Gasson? He's got a decision to make. Kaluma has a decision to make. Does Cam Carter want to come back? I think he does, but who knows? With in this day and age, would you put your name in there to see how much money there is out there? I think most people would say, yeah.
Sure.
Okay,
absolutely.
Let's get past that part. So there's part 1 and 2. Part 3 would be as simple as this. They have a 4-star point guard coming in David Castillo, who you guys are aware of. And I think they're very excited about him. He's a terrific talent and a terrific young man. But above and beyond that, where are they moving forward from there? I think you're looking at some areas where they feel like they absolutely have to get better. I think they want some point guard depth. I didn't mention Quez, but I don't know if they and or he have decided, what's happening there either. So there are some questions. But at the end of the day, maybe I could have just said this. They'll hit the portal hard. But who won't?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
Everybody's going to do that.
Right.
Yep. That's very true. And, I think the next
that's kind of it.
Absolutely. I think the next 48 hours are going to be, extremely interesting for the Wildcats, especially watching some of these other bubble teams and what happens with them and who's grabbing automatic bids and other things like that. I don't think that it is 100% a foregone conclusion that they are out. I do agree with you. I think that it's unlikely, but you never know. Wilder things have happened on Selection Sunday, and with all of the evidence that Jerome Tang presented last night, there definitely is a case to be made. And I think it's obviously going to be up to the committee at the end of the day if they want 9 or 10 Big 12 teams in the NCAA tournament. Wyatt. We'll have a program next week. We'll be talking about some kind of postseason game, whether it's an NCAA tournament game or an NIT game. And of course, we'll be able to check in with you then. But we appreciate your time as always. I know it's an interesting time, and hopefully next week we're talking about an NCAA tournament bid.
That would be fantastic. And
Yes.
I guess if the K-State fans out there listening, I would say this to them: hope for no upsets here in the next couple of days or 3 days.
Right.
That would help the cause.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is right.
Yep. If it could be chalk the rest of the way through for the Wildcats, that would absolutely be ideal. We appreciate your time as always, Wyatt. We'll talk to you again next week.
Enjoyed it, fellas. Thanks so much.
All right, there goes Wyatt Thompson, the voice of the Wildcats here on Sports Daily. And I know Wildcat fans everywhere just on the edge of their seats, bracing for what Selection Sunday will bring. We're going to take a timeout. We'll be back on the other side. More Sports Daily coming up. Welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily on KFH. Just a reminder, tournament basketball today on KFH and over on 103.7 KEYN. The Shockers in action in the quarterfinals of the American Tournament. Pre-game start this afternoon at 1:30 over on KEYN. Of course, you can find the broadcast anytime on the free Odyssey app as well. Download that app today, and you'll be able to check out that Shockers game. We've got more on Wichita State in hour number 2 today. Paul, let's react really quickly to Wyatt Thompson put a bow on Kansas State here for the show today. You know, I do think that it is important to keep in mind the resume of Kansas State. And I think the committee should absolutely keep that in mind. The number of quad one wins that they have, the number of quality opponents, the strength of schedule that they have. They do have a resume to at least be given consideration for an NCAA tournament bid. I do think they'll probably come up just short, but to Jerome Tank's point last night, and Wyatt talked about it in the previous segment, there is a case to be made that they could make an NCAA tournament bid.
Well, and that is the hope. Obviously, that is the hope. I don't know that I have a lot of hope. I'm sorry, but it's one of those things. I thought they had to get to the finals. You thought they had to get to the semifinals, and you could even sense in the voice of Wyatt, he wished that they had gone another game or two into the brackets. But Tommy, it's one of those things. I just don't know what to think. We'll find out, I guess, on Sunday, won't we?
Yeah, and we talked before the break, just right before the break, about not having any kind of upsets. Making sure that all the favorites win out. That's going to help the Wildcats' chances to get into the NCAA tournament. Rick points out on our video stream that there already was an upset last night with Dayton losing, so that's a good point.
Well,
that's already one area that you need to try to limit those if you're a Wildcat fan, because the more upsets that there are, the more auto bids are taken. And then, the more at-large bids are being taken away from teams on the bubble.
Right, but I'm so proud of this Kansas State team. I mean, you beat Iowa State, just last Saturday? It's been, 5 days? You beat Iowa State. Of course, it was on your home court. I don't care. They're good no matter what court they're on. And then you beat Texas and send them out to the SEC and say good luck with a big old fat loss right on their resume in the first round for them. So Kansas State has a lot to be proud of. This is a team that banded together, and it could have dropped off the face of the earth. We've seen teams do that before. Same thing with Wichita State. Once we get to them too, they could have dropped off the face of the earth. And you want to know something? We would have just, we kind of saw that coming. It's we thought that was going to happen, and that's that. But boy, I'll tell you, Kansas State, Iowa State win, University of Texas win. Those are beautiful things to build off of. They're going to get some sort of bid into some sort of tournament. It's probably going to be the NIT. That's everybody's guess. Now go win the NIT. Follow through with this and build for next year. That'll be great. That'll be great for next year.
Yeah, the difficult thing in the next 2 days will be there's literally nothing that the Wildcats can do themselves to help their resume out anymore. They're done in the Big 12 tournament. So it's going to be a nerve-wracking couple of days to sit back and wait and see what the committee says and how they assess the resume of the Wildcats. That puts a bow on our Kansas State talk for today. In hour 2, back to the Shockers. We'll chat about them in the American Conference quarterfinals today against UAB. Also, a new wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about that also in hour number 2. On our way out, wrapping up hour 1, let's go ahead and give some tickets away. Terry Clark, the country music singer, will be at the Crown Uptown in April. Let's take caller 3 on the KFH hotline now, 869-1240, to win a pair of tickets to Terry Clark at the Crown Uptown. We'll be back. Hour 2 kicks off next on Sports Daily.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
Welcome back in, everybody. It's hour number 2 of Sports Daily on a Friday. I'm Tommy Castor, along with Paul Savage, and for Jacob Albracht, Jad Chambers producing the program. The KFH hotline is open the rest of the way, 869-1240. We appreciate you tuning in today on the radio, on the free Odyssey app, also on our video stream. You can check us out on the Sports Daily Facebook page, also the KFH YouTube page and the KFH Twitch page as well. It's a good Friday, and you know, Paul, I appreciate you filling in for us this entire week, a couple of days last week. You'll be with us a couple of days next week. It's a lot of Paul Savage in people's lives right now. And I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest with you.
Oh, you poor people. I just feel so sorry for you.
Well, we're looking forward to next week. We talked about it yesterday here on the program. We're going to be down doing Sports Daily Live on Thursday and Friday of next week from the FanDuel Sportsbook at Kansas Star Casino as we kick off March Madness. Of course, the opening round games in the NCAA tournament, Thursday and Friday. The games get going at about 11 o'clock in the morning. We will be doing our show live on Thursday and Friday from the FanDuel Sportsbook, leading right into those opening round games. That's going to be a lot of fun, and I know it's going to be busy down there. People going to be watching all of the games on the big screens at the Kansas Star Casino, at the sportsbook down there, making wagers, placing bets, doing all of that. And so we're excited to be down there to kick off March Madness next week.
That's going to be so much fun. I can't wait for next Thursday and Friday.
Should be fun. Hopefully you can join us all down there. It'll be a lot of fun down in Mulvane at the Kansas Star Casino. Thanks to our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook for having us out on Thursday and Friday. Okay, let's get back to Wichita State talk, Paul. Of course, the Shockers win yesterday, the game against Memphis in the second round of the American tournament. You know what? It's one of those games, and I think you mentioned it yesterday about how this team, they knew that they can play with Memphis. They did it in the first half in their first matchup back in January before Memphis pulled away. It was a heartbreaker on the road at Memphis in February where the Shockers lost by 2. It was a team, they were looking to avenge those 2 losses and looking to keep their season alive. And that's exactly what Wichita State did yesterday.
Well, it's amazing because it was so much fun. It was one of those games where you're stunned all the way through the game. You're stunned. You're still in this game. You're still in this game. Wait a second, you win this game. And there were some great people that stepped up. Some guys who have faced adversity. And in that, the lessons of sports is that no matter what happens to you, you never quit. You never give up. And that's a beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing about sports. I mean, look at the game that Harlan Beverly had. I mean, did you see this coming? 17 points, 6 rebounds, 5 steals, 5 blocks. And Harlan, we're talking about Harlan Beverly. And he stood up and he said, this is it. I'll be the team leader today. And he was a difference maker in that game. And to play that well against Memphis was really something special. I'll tell you what, the Shocker, I can't believe I'm about to say this. We may be talking about the Shockers with a bid to the NCAA tournament.
You're willing to go that far at this point. Okay.
Well, wait a second. Did you see how well they played yesterday?
They did. I think the thing that was most impressive about the game yesterday, in my mind, was the fact that, they, at one point they were up, I think 13 midway through the second half. But what we know about this team is that they can give up some runs to opposing teams. And Memphis got back into the game. There was a really cold shooting stretch for the Shockers. I think they were 1 of 11 from the field over the course of a few minutes in the second half. It allowed Memphis to get back in the game. And I'm sure Shocker fans everywhere had the same thought that I did. Oh no, here we go again. This is what happens with this team. They get up big in the second half and then they let the opponent right back in. And will they be able to overcome this? And they did. That's the most impressive part.
Right.
They did. They overcame that really cold shooting streak in the second half. They overcame the fact that Memphis clawed their way back into the game and at one point actually took the lead back. As soon as Memphis took the lead back, I thought, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to happen for Wichita State today. And there were some clutch. Rogers had a big 3. There was a big offensive rebound and putback, from Harlan Beverly, and he had a great game. I thought Bijan Cortez played really well yesterday as well. They were able to overcome that adversity where we've seen this team not be able to do that in the regular season. They give up those leads and then they don't come back. They don't have the firepower to be able to come back. They've done it 2 games in a row because remember, just the other day against Rice in the opening round, they got down early and they overcame it and they came right back into the game. And then they were able to hold off Rice in the second half. They did the same thing yesterday. So if they can continue that today against UAB and beyond, man, all bets are off at this point for Wichita State.
Right. And and this is just me. I mean, this is just an observation. I'm no basketball expert by any means, but just to me, you know what the key was in the game against Memphis? I think it was the fact that in the second half, Wichita State jumped on Memphis right off the get-go, right out for the second half. Came out, jumped on them, and just put it to them. I mean, they really played well. Scored first 9 points, 9-zip run to start the second half. I'll tell you what, that just took a lot of the will away from Memphis, and that was so important. But you know something? Isn't it nice to see? By the way, I'm going to relate this to Tommy Castor and what's going on in his life. It's nice to see Wichita State growing up. Much as we've seen Tommy Castor's oldest being potty trained.
Oh, okay.
And
I thought you were talking about me growing up. I'm like, well, I feel like I'm fully grown at this point. Go on.
I think your maturity level is probably something we need to talk to you about. But with that being said, it's the same thing. It's you mature, you figure things out, just like your little one and his potty training. It's gone pretty well from what I'm understanding.
Yeah, it's been fine.
Wichita State has figured out, you come out, that you play two halves. There are two halves to a basketball game, and they're figuring that out. And now you come out on the second half and you jump on your opponent. Get on them. If there's a question in their mind that they can win this game, you take it away from them in the first 5 minutes. That's when a lot of basketball games are won, in the first 5 minutes of the second half. And Wichita State did a good job on that, Tommy.
I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay.
There is not another sports talk radio program on this planet, I'm promising this, that will make an analogy between a college basketball team going up and a toddler potty training. But we're doing it right here on Sports
right
Daily,
here,
everybody.
Breaking ground.
This is unique. It's unique radio that you will never get anywhere else.
That's for sure.
And it's all courtesy of Paul Savage. Appreciate that analogy. It does make sense, because I do think we're seeing a team that has learned how to take the gut punches and not fold up like a cheap lawn chair. I think we're seeing that. We're seeing that growth in real time from the Shockers. Now, is that growth coming a little bit late in the season? Absolutely. We would have loved to see that growth happen in January or happen even in February. But here we are in the month of March. And this is, in my mind, what I wanted to see from Wichita State, not only in the regular season, but I am glad I'm seeing it now, because there was absolutely the scenario where we didn't see it at all this year. We go into the offseason with more questions than answers. I think there are still questions going into the offseason, but at least I think that regardless of what happens today or even this weekend, I feel slightly better about the outlook and the prognosis long-term of this program after what we've seen so far in the American tournament.
Slightly? I'm going to give you a chance. Is the word slightly better?
I think it's slightly. I think it's slightly. I mean, I'm not willing to say, maybe if they win today, maybe even if they win tomorrow, at that point, I'm like, okay, like this team, has got something brewing for next year. I'm slightly more confident about them right now as it stands right this second. I think there is, this is kind of where I battle with myself as far as glass half full versus glass half empty, because there will be also a part of me that thinks, man, if they can do this now in the tournament, they absolutely have the talent to do it in the regular season. They just weren't able to get it done. That'll be disappointing to look back on. But at the end of the day, I am impressed and I'm proud of this program for what they have accomplished even so far, in the American tournament, because, keep in mind, they are the lowest seed in the conference remaining in the tournament, the lowest one at the number 12 seed. Temple's number 11. They're still in it, but they've got a pretty good draw today. UAB is a good team, but the Shockers beat them at their place just a few weeks ago. So it's something that could absolutely happen again. And, they could end up playing the winner of South Florida and East Carolina tomorrow afternoon in the semifinal matchup. it has absolutely exceeded my expectations for what Wichita State would do in the postseason.
Right. I think this first 5 to 7 minutes of the first half yesterday was monumental for this basketball team, and let me tell you why. It wouldn't have been if, let's say, this game had been against let's say Temple, or let's say Tulane or somebody like that. I'm not so sure that it would have been, but it wasn't Tulane and it wasn't Temple. It was Memphis.
Yeah.
With the association of pro prospects, the association of NBA All-Star coaching, and all the great things that go right along with Memphis and what they are and who they are. And that's who this was against. And if you can play with Memphis, you can play with anybody. I think that we will talk about this in the years to come at some point. You and I will be doing a show 3-4 years ago, and maybe the reference will come up. You remember that game in the tournament, in the AAC tournament against Memphis a few years back, where they dominated and won a game that everybody just knew they had no chance at, and that was where we're at right now. I think that'll come back. I think this is a big deal. I think this win yesterday was monumental. I think to a guy like Paul Mills, this game was everything. This game was what he was looking for. This is the game that he can build this team off of. He can build this team off of for a series of years and build off of it. So it was a big deal. It was,
yeah.
And I'm giving it probably a little more credit than you, but that's okay. Time will tell. And I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer to what this game meant. But I'll tell you what, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, Shockers go out and take care of UNLV. I mean, they've
UAB.
already done it once.
Yeah.
I mean,
UAB.
UAB. Yeah. I mean, they've done it once, haven't they? They did it. They did it just what?
They did 14, it. Yeah, they did it a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
at UAB.
Right, 15 days ago on the road, they took care of business. So now they're at a place where they can take care of business one more time. I like the Shockers today. I'm going to make. And how long has it been since I've made a bold prediction about Wichita State on winning and losing? Well, guess what? I'm making a bold prediction. Wichita State comes out, plays well, dominates, and wins this game by 9.
Okay. I mean, I think that they absolutely have shown in this tournament their capabilities of doing that. And I know that you're giving it the win yesterday a lot of, you're putting a lot of stock into it.
I'm admitting
and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. And I definitely agree that it was an important win just for this season, but for the future of the program. I believe that because, as I mentioned yesterday, the Shockers in the last 10 games against Memphis, they were 1-9. It's a team that they've not been able to beat, and they beat them. And they beat them. In all likelihood, they ended Memphis's season. Memphis is not getting an NCAA tournament.
Not now.
And it's at the hands of Wichita State. And I think that absolutely does mean a lot. Mike Kennedy, I was listening to the broadcast yesterday, and as soon as the game was over, Mike called it the signature win of year one in the Paul Mills era. And I don't disagree with him.
Good.
I genuinely don't, because I do think that while honestly, I'm putting more importance on this win for the future of the program than I am what I think about them right now. And I think that's okay. I think you can look at the win against Memphis yesterday in a variety of ways. You can say, okay, they're building this momentum to be able to continue to make a run in the conference tournament. And hey, you win 3 more, all of a sudden you're in the NCAA tournament, which would just be wild. It could happen. They've got the talent to do it. I still think it's unlikely, but for me, it's more about, okay, you go and you beat Memphis, you get that monkey off your back. It's a Memphis team with a ton of talent. Paul Mills can use that in recruiting. He can use that in the portal. He can use it with the current players. He can say, look what we did last year. Everybody counted us out. We had a losing record. Nobody expected much of us. We made a run in the conference tournament. Think about what we can do next season. If we reload, we could end up being one of the top teams in the conference. That's exactly the goal. And I think that that can absolutely be the message moving forward, regardless what happens the rest of this weekend for the Shockers.
Well, it's certainly fun to speculate. And I must confess, I'm having a little bit of fantasy right now with with regards to Wichita State, because these are the things legends are made of. And you know how every once in a while I trot out that phrase, don't I? The thing that legends are made of. You know, I've actually used that legends line with regards to speaking to football players at halftime of a big game or something like that. So you want to be a legend? You want to know what legends are made of? Legends are made of right now, right here, this game, right now. And that's where Wichita State is right now with this tournament. This tournament is where legends are made of. You want to be a legend like the 64, and I'm not being facetious. I am not joking around. You want to be a legend, much like the 1964 Wichita State Final Four basketball team, then this is the tournament for you. You get out and, dare I say, win about 3 more games, because I look at the brackets and I think to myself, you've got some good basketball teams. South Florida's pretty darn good, but South Florida can be beat. UAB will be beat, and I'm predicting a win by Wichita State today, getting them into the semifinals. And that is a point at which they will probably play South Florida, would be my
Probably.
guess. Yep. And so then that game will tell us a lot. But I'm telling you right now, this is, if you're a basketball player and you've come to Wichita State, there is no place you would rather be in the world at this moment than right here, right now, getting ready to take the court against UAB. Man, it's a beautiful thing. That's why you and I love sports. That's why sports are good for our kids. This is the reason. It builds character, or it reveals character, if you want to put it that way. But right now, Wichita State has something really special happening. And I'm going to promote it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. I know it can come back and haunt me on whenever I appear next week, and I'll be on the show a few times next week. It can come back and haunt me, and people say, oh, gosh, you got carried away, Savage. You got carried away again. Once again, Savage gets carried away. Well, you know something, it's okay, because I understand how big this is to those kids. And by golly, you know something, Wichita State has a great shot at beating UAB. They just beat them 15 days ago. Let them play again, beat them again, and play South Florida. You might as well go play the best in the conference tomorrow.
By the way, if you are a betting fan, right now the Shockers are 5.5-point underdogs against a team that they went on the road and beat just a couple of weeks ago. Right. You can get pretty solid plus money right now if you like the Shockers on the money line. So just tossing that out there. What I'm looking at right now, the Shockers are plus 190 on the money line. So that's pretty good odds. You can make pretty good money if you like Wichita State to get the upset and get the win against UAB today. I go back to basically the way that this season has played out for Wichita State. And I'm going to be completely honest. It's been a roller coaster for me, because I've been up and down on the Shockers, probably as far up as you can go and as far down as you can go. At one point, you know, in the non-conference, before they kind of hit that skid, I remember saying, I think this is a team that has the talent to compete for a conference championship. And then the bottom fell out. And then very quickly, myself, a lot of other people, the fan base, they were tossing dirt on the coffin of the Shockers not that long ago, and talking about how it was unacceptable and the way that things had been playing out. It was not, you know, this was not Shocker basketball as it should be. And here we go. You know, all you got to do is just dangle a carrot, you know, in front of me, at least. I can't speak for anybody else, but give me a reason to tune in. Give me a reason to be invested. Give me a reason to pull for the Shockers and to feel like there's hope in this program. And there is right now. And even if they lose today, I'm going to end this season by saying, yeah, there were some absolute disappointing moments. Absolutely there were. But I do feel like there is a little bit of momentum going into the offseason if they can continue this. If Paul Mills can build on this, if he can take the lessons learned this season and build from it and grow from it, then I do have hope and I do have faith in the way that this program will come together next season.
You know, you've kind of made me feel good about myself, Tommy, with that little explanation. I thought it was just, it was me, because, one of the things that I have always done, whether I can see the game, whether I didn't see the game, one of the things that I've always done with Wichita State basketball is check the box score. I mean, even if I couldn't see it, maybe I was tied up, I couldn't get away. I mean, who knows what it'd be, what time of day, whatever, and I couldn't see the game, watch it live or watch it on television or in the roundhouse, is go to the box score as soon as I can. Halfway through this season, guess what I stopped doing? I stopped
checking
going
the box scores.
I stopped. Yeah. And I know that's unusual, but I kind of lost interest in checking the box score. Well, guess what I'm doing right now? I'm looking at stuff that I haven't looked at for a while with Wichita State, except to do this show and that kind of thing. But as a fan, I'm talking about as a fan, I'm interested in the box score again. I want to look at the box score. That game against Memphis has changed me over and made me understand that somewhere there was a plan by Paul Mills. I'll be real truthful, Paul. You did a great job of camouflaging that plan because I'm not sure if I knew what the plan was, but evidently the plan is now coming to fruition and you're starting to see some results. And the way Wichita State played against Memphis has me looking at box scores again.
Here's the bottom line, and this will be the final point before we take a break. When it comes to college basketball, and especially a program like Wichita State, that is the number one game in town. It's Shocker basketball, and it has been for a long time. The fan base, a lot of times, they mimic what the team is doing. They mimic the program. I think back to the Greg Marshall era when it was play angry and it was this gritty chip on your shoulder kind of mentality. I think that the city of Wichita embodied that to an extent. Like they took on the personality of the team and the program, generally speaking, right? I think that can go the other way too. If you've got a team that is uninspired, you've got a fan base that's uninspired. And we saw that at times throughout the course of this season. There were games that looked so uninspired that for me, I'm like, I don't even really want to watch this anymore. I'm not really invested in this.
I think
it's not really anything that I want to take my time to, out of my day, out of my busy schedule to invest in them. But this conference tournament, they've looked inspired.
Right.
They've made clutch shots. The effort's been there. The energy level has been there. It's got me excited because they're playing excited. I would imagine that will continue today.
Well,
and maybe even through the weekend. It's been, I dare call it a magic Cinderella run in the conference tournament so far for Wichita State.
Yeah, why not?
What do you say we just keep it going?
Yeah,
let's just keep it going through the weekend.
Tommy, you just capsulized everything that we were talking about, and your reference to playing angry. A city embraced that. Did you ever driving around this city and a restaurant might have up there, come on in, eat angry? Or you you go to a little strip shopping center and shop angry right here, whatever little references to angry all over the place. All of a sudden, angry was a good thing. And for Wichita State, playing angry, the word angry was a good thing. Same thing for Wichita State. This is a community, and isn't it amazing that how one game, my friend, can turn around how a basketball program is perceived, how a head coach, how a coaching staff is perceived.
I hesitated saying it, but I'm going to go ahead and say it.
Please.
I think we're entering Cinderella status in the conference tournament. I know that's a cliche. It's a cliche, but I think that's where we're at right now. And I think a win today against UAB would absolutely cement that as a Cinderella run in the conference tournament.
Didn't Cinderella go to the ball? I think she did, didn't she?
She did.
She went
Let's just
to
hope
the
that
ball.
Let's hope that carriage doesn't turn back into a pumpkin.
I got you.
Soon.
Okay.
That's the goal today. UAB tip-off time around 2:00. Pre-game coverage will begin with Mike Kennedy at 1:30 over on KEYN. We're going to shift gears after the break. Kansas City Chiefs football talk. They've got a brand new wide receiver. We'll talk all about it coming up next on Sports Daily. Didn't get a chance to mention it a little bit earlier on in the program, but congratulations to Mike. Mike is our winner of the Terry Clark tickets, the country music singer. She will be at the Crown Uptown in the month of April. We appreciate the Crown Uptown giving us these tickets to give away to our listeners. We appreciate doing that. Appreciate getting the chance to do that every single day here on the program. So once again, congratulations to Mike for winning those tickets. Paul, are you a golf fan? Do you follow professional golf at all?
Right. I'm not a golfer, but I love the game of golf. It's
Okay.
a magnificent game, and I'm intrigued and I'm in love with the Masters.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're only a couple of weeks away.
We're
from
not
the
far
Masters.
away. No, we're not.
It's my favorite weekend of the entire year. I love March
But I love
Madness,
golf,
but
yes.
I think I love the Masters more than anything else. But we haven't talked about it at all because, you know, it's not prominent. College basketball is right now.
Right.
But the Players Championship is this weekend. And
That is right.
I've enjoyed watching it. I've got it on in the background here in my studio and keeping an eye on that. Rory McIlroy has been pretty strong in this tournament so far. I believe he's in the lead last I checked.
Right.
So it's always fun. It's one of the bigger tournaments of the year for PGA golf. And,
Right.
I don't know if have you watched Full Swing, the documentary on Netflix about professional golf? If you haven't, I would absolutely recommend checking it out.
Well,
Season number 2 just dropped. It's really good.
Well, thank you for that, because I'm going to be real truthful. I've never heard of it. I mean, I get Netflix, but I have never heard of this particular show on Netflix, and I will check it out when I get home, and I can't wait to see it. By the way, McIlroy, I mean, he had a great round. It was a very, very interesting round. A double bogey, and still in the lead. Well, at least I think he's tied.
He was at least at the end of yesterday in the lead.
Right. I'm talking about yesterday.
Wild.
But I mean, yesterday, a double bogey and still able to have a lead in the players.
Wild.
That's crazy. That's nuts.
That's wild.
Because you got some really good golfers in that tournament. Not all the great golfers, and which still has to do with LIV and all the things going on with that. I think there's still a lot of hard and hurt feelings with regards to this whole thing, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the players, it still doesn't take away from the pageantry. And oh my gosh, have you watched any of that? If you watched any of that, that is so magnificently beautiful. It is one of the most naturally beautiful golf courses, and television really does a good job of just gathering how beautiful that spot of the world is.
I'm going to make a confession here, and I haven't said this on the air. I turned down the opportunity to go to the final round of the Masters this year. I had the chance to go the Sunday final round of the Masters. I had some friends that they were able to secure some tickets for the final round. They had an extra ticket. They invited me, and I wasn't able to make it happen with my schedule, and I had to turn it down. And I'm kicking myself, Paul, that I turned it down because that's a bucket list.
That's a
one
lifetime.
of these days, one of these days I feel like I need to get down there. And hopefully I'll have another chance. It just wasn't going to be able to work this year.
Final round? You just say
final,
the
final round. I turned it down.
Tommy, you got to get your priorities straight, man. Life is short. Get your priorities right. I'm here to help you.
I've lost some sleep after making that decision. I'm not going to lie about it.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but I do love this time of year for golf, and the big majors are, kicking off and all of that here very shortly. Let's transition into the NFL, Paul. Big news for the Kansas City Chiefs. We've been wondering all week long with all of the free agency talk and all the different deals and acquisitions going on around the NFL this week, what the Chiefs were going to do, if anything, at wide receiver. We saw some of their proposed targets go to other teams like Darnell Mooney and some others making decisions to go to other teams in free agency. We didn't know exactly what direction the Chiefs were going to go. They made a deal last night per sources that Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, former Raven and former Cardinal, agrees to a 1-year, $11 million deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a guy that when he was in Baltimore, he showed flashes of being a really, really good wide receiver. Didn't really hear a ton from him in Arizona, but they didn't have a very good team in Arizona for him to be with. Now he comes to the defending Super Bowl champions, and I do think that it is an upgrade at wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes.
Right. This is the guy that has a lot of upside. I mean, he's got some speed. He can catch the football. Didn't have the greatest of 2023s. It was good. It was not normal for him. 574 yards, played in 14 games, 51 catches, 4 touchdowns. That's not what he would want. It would be much better than that. But anyway, with that being said, he certainly is a receiver that is an upgrade, in my opinion, from what you have right now. So I'm glad to see this. We knew something would happen. We knew that the Chiefs would look at somebody. Marquez Brown is
Marquise Brown.
For Marquise Brown is for me is just as good as anybody right now that's out there available, at least as I can see. So good for the Chiefs. Shake it up a little. Bring somebody else in new. I think it's a great thing. It needed to be done. Had to be done.
And you know what? I like the idea of bringing him in on a 1-year deal. I like the idea of the amount of money that they were willing to give to him. It's not unlike the deal that they gave Juju Smith-Schuster a couple of years ago for a guy that wants to get back on track in his career, that wants to be able to maybe get a longer-term deal. I think he's 27, so he's got a handful of years left, I think, to be relatively productive in the NFL. And playing alongside Patrick Mahomes, a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster a couple of years ago was able to parlay that 1 year into a longer-term contract with another team.
Right.
That could very well happen with Marquise Brown this year. And of course they've made some changes, that they're not bringing back MVS. We know that. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see some kind of changes, whether it's Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney. But I do think that when you've got a guy like Rashee Rice, who blossomed last year, and then you're bringing in a speed guy, a deep threat guy in Hollywood Brown, alongside Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, to me, that makes me feel a little bit better. It's more of an upgrade, I think, in catching the football for Mahomes next year.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And by the way, we all knew something had to be done. I mean, we all, even to this very day, here we have the Kansas City Chiefs. They're Super Bowl champions. And yet, if you think to yourself, what is the Achilles heel of this football team, whether it's rightful or not, your mind's going to wander to the wide receivers. It does for me. And I know that it's a deeper question than that, but it's still human nature. So the Kansas City Chiefs are addressing a problem that they need to fix. Will they do another receiver, one more, do you think?
I think that there are a couple things they could do. I think that I still wouldn't be opposed to them using a higher round draft pick on a wide receiver. I don't know at this point. I was of the belief for a while that they should take their first round pick and go wide receiver. I'm not sure they're going to do that now with the Hollywood Brown signing, but I'd be okay with maybe a second round pick or something like that being a wide receiver. But I also do think there are enough veteran wide receivers that are still out there in free agency that you could maybe take a swing on someone that's not going to cost you a lot of money, that's a veteran, that you could maybe bring in for maybe another reclamation project. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. Nothing like experience when it comes to that, but there's also going to be some good talent with regards to receiver in the upcoming draft. But you're right. First round pick receiver. Boy, I'd sure like to see that pick go somewhere else. But with that being said, if you can use free agency and pick up that one more guy, that guy who still has a couple of years in him, give it a shot, give it a go. What the heck? I'd go ahead and do it. But there's there are still some wide receivers that I think are quality that are available out there that you could probably get on a relative discount. Look at a guy like Mike Williams, for example, from the Chargers. He was a cut with salary cap issues with LA. You could look at him. Hunter Renfrow, the same situation for him with Las Vegas. Tyler Boyd is out there. He might be a little bit too old. Odell Beckham Jr., kind of the same thing. DJ Chark is still out there. Paris Campbell is still out there. You could bring back McCole Hardman. I'm not sure anybody necessarily wants that to happen, but he's still a free agent out there. There are some, I think, viable wide receivers that you could still get for maybe pennies on the dollar. That's something to keep in mind as maybe a depth piece for Kansas City, but I do think they will address that in the draft. I'm in favor of this signing of Hollywood Brown. I think it's a good thing. I think it's going to be a good target for Patrick Mahomes next year. Does Odell have any gas in the tank?
Unless you're looking at,
I'm just asking.
Unless you're looking at getting him on a dime, I'm not sure he's somebody I would want to kick the tires
Point
off.
made. You made my point. That's a perfect point. I'd take a chance on the guy if he's pennies on the dollar.
If he's pennies on the dollar, you could at least make that phone call. I don't have high hopes, though.
I don't either.
We'll see. I do think it was a good move yesterday, though, for Kansas City to land Hollywood
Like
Brown on that
Hollywood.
1 year, $11 million deal. All right, we're going to take another timeout. On the other side, our final full segment of the show. It's on the way for you on Sports Daily. Welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on a Friday here on KFH. I'm Tommy Castor, Paul Savage today with us. Chad Chambers producing the program, our final full segment here today, Paul. I've been trying to keep an eye on what is likely for the Kansas Jayhawks in March Madness next week, what seed they'll be, what region they'll be in, all of that. We haven't really talked Jayhawks today because there's really not a whole lot to talk about outside of their seeding. Basically, everything I'm looking at right now, a lot of these bracketologists, whether it's Joe Lunardi from ESPN or others, right now, a lot of them still have Kansas as a 4 seed. And I do think that there is the possibility they could fall to that 5 line. But knowing the way that everything has panned out over the last couple of weeks for the Jayhawks, man, if I'm Bill Self, if I can end up with a 4 seed, I feel pretty good about that, knowing the way that things have played out lately.
Well, there's a huge difference between a 4 and a 5. I can tell you that. Not sure. We'll find out. I'm not sure it really matters. It depends upon Hunter Dickinson. If he can come back and be somewhat of 100%, that'd be great. We had, of course, I think it was Wyatt. No, it wasn't Wyatt. It was
Shreyas Latta. We had him earlier this week on Monday.
Earlier in the week. Says, the injury that he has is pretty tough. That's a tough injury. We'll see what's going to happen. But my hopes for the Jayhawks right now, they're not great. Injuries, I don't know that they're going to be 100%, even if Hunter Dickinson plays. I don't know. I don't know what to think of them, but I don't think it's going to be good. I'm not sure how bad it could be, but I'm not sure it's going to be good.
Yeah, I know that the health absolutely of Dickinson and McCuller, that's the top priority.
It is.
Bill Self he's been pretty adamant that both of those guys will be ready to go. I wonder how much of that and I don't want to say Bill Self has been defiant necessarily in this, but he's been very assertive that both of these guys will be a go next week. I think that there's a part of that where, it's strategy for Bill Self. He doesn't want the committee to think that either one of these guys may not play, because if they think that, then they would have more ammunition to drop them out of a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. So I do think there's a little bit of gamesmanship there, whether or not both of them are absolutely 100%. Self's been pretty adamant that they're both going to play.
Gosh, manipulating injury reports. Let's see. Have we ever heard of that before? Oh, wait a second. It's done all the time. He's
not manipulating.
It's done all the time.
Report.
Well, I mean, or should I say not being 100% candid? But there's no rule that says you got to be 100% candid. You just don't need to tell all there is to be told. But with that being said, I get what you're saying, and you're right. And I know that everything is supposed to be, fairly cut and dried. But, I've always said I don't care what the committee is. There's going to be personalities. There's going to be people with biases. I think most people, when they think about University of Kansas basketball, they think they're good. They're good. That's what's in the back of my mind. No matter what they are, no matter the problems they're facing, they're good. It's the University of Kansas, for goodness sakes. And I think a lot of that is going to apply to this situation. But not all. The problem is they're going to have to take the court. They're going to have to take the court next week. And injury-wise, this is a team. I mean, we just sat there and marveled at the way Kansas played, and in terms of they looked like boys against men against Cincinnati the other day. I think we made that comment the next day, and that was for sure. And the fact that Johnny Furphy hasn't ever shaved yet, is waiting to shave for his first time. Now that was a joke, but he doesn't look like a full-grown NBA player yet, does he? I mean, he's going to be.
You're telling me that he grows facial hair kind of like our buddy Jacob Albracht does. That's kind of what you're.
Oh my gosh,
that's kind of what you're saying.
You went there. Hey, make sure you tag this on the reel there, okay, Jad? Okay, we're there. There's going to be a good little clip for us for a spot one of these days. But anyway,
I like that.
Yeah, but anyway, you get what I'm saying with regards to this is going to be a team that's going to be fascinating. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be bad, but it's going to be fascinating to watch the University of Kansas and how they play. In other words, the first round game that whoever they get and whoever they're assigned to, whatever their seed is, it's going to be must watch TV for me, because I'm curious. I'm curious about how the Jayhawks show up to play this first round game. I want to know. I think it's going to be fascinating with their players, without their players. I don't know, but I'm curious about the University of Kansas and how they play this first round game. I'm watching.
Everybody has been focused on this week between now and the tournament,
right,
about the health of Dickinson and McCullough and them getting healthy. I think it's more than that. I mean, that's absolutely important, but it's this team needing a little bit of a reset. It's getting a little bit of a, rest and a break from, guys like KJ Adams, who exerted so much energy in the Big 12 tournament and that 20-point loss in the opening round. DeJuan Harris to get his mind right. For the guys like Johnny Furphy and Nick Timberlake, I don't know if you need extra reps in the gym shooting over the next week, and that may be part of it, but it's just getting this entire team gelled and a little bit of a reset back on track for the tournament next week. It could do them wonders, or, who knows, ultimately at the end of the day. Different brackets I've seen. Some have Kansas in Omaha, which would be great. Some have Kansas in Spokane, Washington. A lot of them still have KU as a 4 seed. We'll see if that plays out with the committee on Sunday. On a variety of levels, Selection Sunday is going to be crazy in 48 hours. I can't wait for it. We're going to step aside our final timeout of the show. It's on the way for you. We'll tell you what's on the network today and this weekend next on Sports Daily.
To Jalen Rose, dish to Kevin Garnett, or take it to the rim yourself for a dunk. Play BetMGM's Fast Break free-to-play game daily and get a B-ball reward if you score a basket. Simply access the Fast Break game in your BetMGM promotion section. Play the game and see if you win. Your prizes could include bonus bets or boost tokens for NBA and college basketball bets. There are endless ways to enjoy hoops with BetMGM, and the action on the court just got even more exciting with this daily chance to dish and swish. Go to your account today and every day throughout the season for the Fast Break free-to-play game. Take your shot and see if you score. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. Kansas only. Existing customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel.
Tired of that constant dripping? Superior Plumbing is here to help. Our parts department stocks only genuine top-quality parts for repairs that last. Brands like Kohler, Delta, and American Standard faucets, water heaters, toilets, and more. Whether you're a trade professional or a DIYer, we have licensed plumbers on hand to help.
Superior Plumbing will come a-running, 'cause we care, treat you fair and square. And our name says it all, Superior.
Come and enjoy a free birthday boil at Hook and Reel. Valid only with minimum of a 2-entree purchase, proof of ID, and also valid 3 days before and 3 days after birthday. Located in Town East Parking Lot, East Kellogg.
Toppers Plus Truck and RV, your RV headquarters, now offers Rhino Linings Eco Coat, a spray-on roof lining to protect your RV from daily wear. It's 100% seamless, won't crack or peel, UV resistant, lasts 3 times longer than a rubber roof with a Toppers Plus lifetime leak-free guarantee. Shop in-stock accessories including sewer and electrical items, freshwater hoses, stabilizing kits, lock kits, AC filter parts, and RV decor. Get your free RV roof inspection at Toppers Plus Truck and RV, 333 Northwest Street or toppersplusks.com.
Make a truck work for you!
No 2 feet are alike, no 2 environments are alike, and no 2 styles are alike, which can make selecting purpose-built footwear a challenge for most. That's why the experts at Red Wing Shoe Store are here to give you a professional fit experience. As certified product and fit specialists, our trained staff are uniquely qualified to address the challenges people experience when looking for the right fit. Get the ultimate fit today at Red Wing Shoes. For a free fit analysis, visit Red Wing Shoes at 6600 West Kellogg.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Purchase new wiper blades from O'Reilly Auto Parts today and we'll install them for free. See better and drive safer with O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single-barrel bourbon to try. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find at Total Wine & More. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly. B21.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
College men's basketball action yesterday, the second round of the American Tournament in Fort Worth. Wichita State taking on Memphis. The Shockers a heavy underdog, but not on this day. Mike Kennedy and Dave Dahl with the call on 103.7 KEYN.
And he got them both. Bijan Cortez with ice water in his veins. And now Quinterly rushing it up the floor. They've got to score quick. Quinterly to the basket, throws it out to Tomlin. Three by Tomlin from the corner. No good, and that's the ball game. Wichita State defeats Memphis to get to the quarterfinals of the American Tournament. The 12 knocks off the 5 and a huge upset. Final score, Wichita State 71, Memphis 65.
Hey, how about that? The Shockers advance into the quarterfinals of the American Tournament. Next up for the Shockers, a matchup against UAB. That game will tip off sometime after 2 o'clock this afternoon. Listen live on 103.7 KEYN. I'm Ted, the Sports Head.
Wichita's official radio voice of CBS Sports. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Okay, a big weekend on tap. Let's run through it. Following us here on KFH, Jim Rome at 11. Of course, we've got Shocker basketball. That's going to be taking place this afternoon, pregame at 1:30 against UAB over on KEYN with Mike Kennedy. Here on KFH, Bob and Jeff at 2. Only for a little bit, though, because Butler men's basketball kicks off against Barton County. That's going to be right here on KFH with Dennis Higgins beginning at 2:45. Then tonight, we've got Shocker baseball taking on Gonzaga on KFH. You can catch Shocker baseball against Gonzaga Saturday afternoon here on KFH and Sunday afternoon right here on KFH. If the Shockers win on the basketball court in the American Tournament today, we'll have coverage this weekend over on KEYN. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here Monday.